Hi everyone, my name is Aisha. I'm the co-founder of Impact Hub Istanbul, world's largest global social innovation platform. And we have been a partner of Global Compact Turkey since last fall in organizing and implementing young SDG innovators in Turkey. We have worked with 18 companies over a course of months in defining their SDG challenges and creating innovations around them. As Impact Hub Istanbul, we have been working close to 4 years with various social enterprises and private sector companies in getting them to understand the SDGs and creating innovations around them. And I was incredibly excited to be part of the Young SDG Innovators program and working with these 18 companies and the change makers that the program was developing. I think they're going to be the influencers within their companies to kind of start this change. And today's discussion is around that. We have three really interesting individuals that I've known for a while, where we will be discussing the impact of SDG innovation and how it can be further scaled within the private sector through unique perspectives of our panelists who come from development, entrepreneurship, and risk management. Our guests actually have been part of the Young SDG Innovators program as mentors since the beginning, so they have interacted with the participants in that program. So Erdem, Attila, and Başak, welcome to our panel. It's really exciting to have you guys here for the next half an hour. So I'll quickly start off with our questions. I'm really excited to hear your perspectives about our topic. So Attila, I would like to start off with you. You have been working for probably close to 3 years now, bringing together startups and corporates and helping generate business opportunities for both sides. And impact and SDG innovation, similar to working with startups, is a new concept to many corporations that are not probably Global Compact members. What do you think is the potential for growth in this new knowledge and practices to a larger number of companies in Turkey? What are some steps that we need to take to further develop it?
Hi, Aisha, and thank you for this opportunity. It's a privilege to be here with you guys, interacting with you guys. I'd like to start up with what I know. I'm coming from an open innovation accelerator working out, and I'm the chief dreamer and co-founder there. And me and my wonderful team had the opportunity to interact with startups and corporates along the way. And the first thing that we do as the entrepreneurial mindset, we ask, what is the problem? Why are we not seeing bigger number of corporations focused on impact? Another linked problem that from my experience, from our experience, is why are impact efforts more conceptual rather than concrete executionable ones in our ecosystem? Well, my answers are coming from my perspective again, and the first thing I see is the consumer demand is mostly created by boomers and next generation right now. The majority is there, and society is like a reflection for the corporates that we have. So what are some common traits that we see in our markets? Well, we're more price sensitive than value sensitive or impact sensitive. This is reality. If we cannot see this reality, we cannot tackle the problem. So how do we convert price sensitive to value sensitive? It's a journey from nice to have to a must have. It's a journey from conceptual to executionable. Well, executionable efforts like this, organization, Impact Hub, and many social entrepreneurs along with this panel, we're contributing to the cause. But we need the corporations to execute. And the final step is to show them, measure the return on investments, their return on investment. For that, we need impact measurements. We need concrete and unanimously accepted tools like B Corp provides. Understanding the problem is the first step. Through empathy, finding a common language. That's why whenever I go to a meeting with a startup or a corporation, I say I speak two languages. I speak startup, I speak corporate. And that's why we have to understand why we are here and how we can proceed. Our efforts collaboratively, lots of wonderful people here. Our efforts are steps we're taking to serve as a foundation for the change that has arrived. Not coming, not arriving, not soon. It has arrived. Y and Z generation will be in the corporate execution power by majority in less than 5 years. Let's take a look at Turkish demographics. Roughly around 40 million people aged 0 to 34. These upcoming generations' core value is to question things with sincerity. Why do I work for this company? The demographic change is going to be driving the cultural change. Do I want to work with a company who is the leader in their sector, or do I want to be working for a company who has some impact on my life or my society or the environment? These are the questions that these generations are asking. Trust me, because there are some employee retention problems for those companies who are resisting the change. And for our efforts, I said we're paving the way, and Mother Nature is on our side, as always. She's cruel to be kind. COVID, it's a tragedy, it's a trauma, but every trauma, every tragedy is there for us to learn. And right now we're experiencing cleaner air in Istanbul, up to 40% cleaner air, cleaner seas. And for my experience as a part of Working Lot, I'm experiencing never before seen digital collaboration and data created in human history. Our efforts of impact measurement tools, impact funding, and the corporate startup collaboration, it's going to pave the way. But now together, with the driving force of the new generations, we will see more and more corporations sincerely executing projects with the focus of impact. With that effect, I see the future where we use the terms like impact auditing rather than financial auditing. We're going to be discussing profits optimization, not maximization. These generations are on our side. They're pushing it. The agenda is here. It has arrived. And we as social entrepreneurs, our role is to pave the way, just like we're doing right now.
Super. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm going to lead my question on to Başak now. Başak, you're in a unique position where in your career, prior to what you're doing now, you have had the chance to experience the intersection of international development and entrepreneurship for a while. Do you think the prevalence of SDG innovation within companies is changing or improving the social and environmental issues?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Ayşe. Yes, I've been working on international development for about 20 years. And back in time, 20 years ago, we worked towards Millennium Development Goals, the localization of MDGs. And MDGs united private sector as a partner to development for the first time. I worked for a number of multi-sectoral projects with the involvement of companies. And I recall now that those projects were heavily philanthropy type, corporate social responsibility activities. The private sector had a strong culture of observing the society and the environment as the other from itself. Today, though, I see a strong shift from that understanding. With SDGs, as SDGs do, businesses as well began to recall themselves as indispensable to global partnership for sustainable development. We all have a new perspective, and I believe that the companies share this new understanding as well. And now they began to approach our societies, the environment as key parties for themselves. So with the old development approach, we differentiated social enterprises from ventures, for instance. Today, we see that companies are as well shifting towards an understanding for creation of impact altogether, whether if they call themselves as humanitarian enterprises, social enterprises, or venture companies. So I think I agree with Attila that with the new generation, the change will be speeded up, but the change has already been there, I guess.
Thank you very much, Başak. Now we're turning to Erdem to take a more macro lens. Based on your work area, you look at many impact issues, especially natural disasters and climate, with a more macro lens. My question is around our collective progress towards improving the state of our world. Is innovation for the SDGs going to carry us to a better state about the world? Are there any other connected topics that we need to consider while we think about impact through SDG innovation, Erdem? I don't think we can hear you. No, we can't hear you still. Maybe without the headphones? Okay, no worries. I'll direct my question to Erdem right after then. Maybe, Başak, we can continue on with you because you gave a good perspective on a macro level with your experience. But you also currently work on mostly on circular economy topics, and I'm sure it gets you really excited to see our world's future when a lot of multinational companies are like signing joint agreements on plastics usage reduction and a lot of different types of campaign happening around the globe and Turkey as well. How do you think circular economy contributes to furthering our impact through SDG innovation? And what do we need to do to spread the methodologies of circular economy?
It's my turn, right? This is the...
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion. Yes, as I've just explained, I truly believe that a new mindset for business is emerging, and circular economy is a restorative, regenerative approach to business. Circular solutions are invaluable for people, give business a competitive advantage, and they are regenerative for our world. And I believe that businesses understand and welcome the benefits of circular economy for their companies, for the society and our globe. Of course, understanding is awareness is part of it. It's the initial step, but we need to work more together to increase this shift and understand different methodologies, so how we can become more circular, how we can shift our products, services, business models, operations to be more circular. And we shall help each other to get started designing for the circular economy. Indeed, that's why we have been acting as a platform as DCube, Circular Economy Cooperative in Turkey, trying to bring experts from different sectors and disciplines, including international development, to facilitate industries to become circular. And we see that increasingly companies are shifting from selling a product to turning their product into a service. And understanding the user needs enables this shift. So, and this shift will help us to save our resources and at the end, the globe indeed. We already have this transition. Circular economy move is well going forward fast, but as we as all different actors shall take responsibility, including industries and specialists in international development, in designing and developing circular models. And I truly believe that especially European Commission's leadership on circular economy with the new industry strategy and circular economy action plan is speeding up our transition to circular economy.
Thank you very much, Başak. I totally believe that it's a quite essential topic that we still have a lot of way to explore and learn and apply in the near future too. So, and any large institutions assistance is quite crucial there. Erdem is back on with us, so we can continue on with you, Erdem. Welcome back. Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. Hello.
Perfect. Super. So I wanted to ask you a question about more on the macro level.
Yeah, I got the question. I got the question. So
super.
I can go on with the question. So if you allow me, I'm working as a disaster risk management expert. So that's been my profession for 20 years. I run across with disasters. I've survived earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, and I worked afterwards in them for management of the response, the recovery, and getting back to normal. So it was said before me, and I would like to join in saying that a disaster has an impact. You can't go away from that, but it also has learning opportunities. So what I'm looking into is not the impact. The impact is always there. You have loss of life, loss of livelihood, building collapsing. But what's interesting is, what did the community learn indeed? And interestingly, the philosopher Wells has a good saying that I'd like to start with. And he says that civilization is the race between education and catastrophe. That's it. Either you perish, your civilization crash because of a catastrophe, or you learn, and you learn from it, or you learn by it, and then you move on, and the civilization continues. So it can be interesting to ask ourselves, what are the learnings that we have from COVID? And that's our line of business. We work with business associations, the largest of Turkey. We work with universities, and we work with chambers, chambers of professions. And there's three messages that I'd like to share very briefly. The first one is that crises do not bring any change. They accelerate change. Whatever change was there before the crisis is accelerated. It can go up or it can go down. You can crash a trend if the wind is not favorable, or that trend can just skyrocket because it has a tailwind. The wind is now blowing from behind. So all the trends that we've been following before COVID are still there. What we need to understand is COVID has accelerated it or decelerated it, and revise our business model accordingly. But crisis itself doesn't generate any new change. The second message of a learning is that the SDGs took the biggest hit in their history. We're approximately back 30% of all SDGs achievement. Revenue inequality, gender, climate, environment, it all looks positive, but carbon emission have been down approximately 5%, with the entire society coming to a stop. 95% was still being emitted because they're infrastructure related. They're not consumer use related. So the idea is that the idea of sustainable development taking a big hit is that SDGs will need to do a learning. And maybe that the learning that we see is that from the word sustainable, we may have a shift towards circular economy becoming a key pillar of sustainable development, and also resilience. And that is the third learning, is that the word resilience is interpreted wrongly. There's two interpretations of the term. The first one is to get back on track, and get back on track quickly. You were at 100% optimization, maximization, you go back to that. The second, and that's an engineering definition, it's embedded into systems theory. But the second sense of resilience is more ecosystem based. And it's like, how far away from your equilibrium point are you still comfortable? So that is the option that we should be thinking of, is that there's no turning back to normal. There's what is normal is more the approach of, if the Rolling Stones, like wherever I lay my head is home. If it's the new normal, well, so be it. Then we need to be comfortable with that. And I'm saying that within the framework of this is how we should educate ourselves and educate our companies, our institutions, etc., so that we actually learn from the crisis. Because this one, it's going to be expensive. So we've already been impacted. If we lose the lessons in addition to that, that's going to be double expensive. So I'll stop there to continue the discussion.
Thank you very much, Ardem. Actually, I have another question for you to continue on, which is something that you haven't mentioned really, but I think it's connected to some of the points that you've made. Is what is the role of innovation in all of this? My question was going to be around climate change, but I would really appreciate if you can elaborate a little bit on that with regards to COVID. So I'm curious about your perspectives on corporations and them utilizing their resources to innovate in tackling these large-scale systemic issues.
Yeah. So COVID is expected to have an impact from 4 to 6% of GDP in Turkey. This is actually quite low compared to some European countries. Italy is expected to have 8 to 15% GDP. The Second World War impact on Italian GDP was 15%, just to put things in perspective. For Turkey, 46 GDP points means the Marmara earthquake of '99. That was the largest natural event in our recent memory. In '99, what happened is that 60% of small and medium enterprises that were impacted closed business, 60%. And those who remained intact, they had business closure of average of 40 days. So if you talk about innovation, this is where innovation comes in. How can we innovate so that we reduce business closure rates? How can we innovate so that we reduce business disruption? And how do we innovate to keep competitiveness? Now, we see three ways of doing it. There's a pressure. There will be pressure on companies. There will be pressure on corporations to allocate resources differently. And I think Attila and Başak spoke to that very, we complete each other on those senses. From our perspective, we see that supply chains is a big entry point. If you want to remain competitive on your supply chains, you need to innovate. So it's not going to come internally. Oh, we need to innovate, and it's going to come from outside. Like business reacts to the outside pressures and they adapt to market dynamics. So the first market dynamics is supply chains. We see a complete reorganization of supply chains from a diversification of European supply chains. This is what Tüstad and Turkonfed are talking about, and how we can position Turkish businesses around that. The second one is property, is the goods. In any country, Turkey included, approximately 90% of property is private property. It's either individuals or it's either company. It's the cars, it's the houses, it's the land, it's the companies. As soon as you have an impact, you need to protect your investment. Among businesses in Turkey, 25% is insured. 25% of small and medium enterprises are insured. The rest of property is uninsured. That would put pressure on innovation so that you think differently about your investment, your real estate investment, your capital, etc. And the third one is customer. And I would join Attila in his speech about the market demand is generated by baby boomers and X generations. That's for the time being, yes, because that's who own the capital, and it's cost-based, it's not value-based, etc. But as soon as you have a shift in customers' demands, then they would need to adapt. So this is where innovation will play in. Either they follow the trends on supply chains, on property losses, and on customer demand, or they shape up trends. We've seen Tesla and many other companies like Apple, etc., trying to shape up the trends, and they've been quite successful. So they can also take the forefront in innovation and taking to shape demands. That's not really the classical way of doing business in Turkey, but why not? Maybe they'll learn from the crisis and try a different model. But if they're pressure driven and if they're reactive, there's three ways: supply chains, property, and customers that will drive and channel innovation investments in companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erdem. So Attila, you guys obviously work a lot with startups, and although our discussion is around the Young SDG Innovators program and with a focus on corporates, the impact startups their mentalities are incredible examples of how we can create impact through SDG innovation. What are some small things that we can learn from these startups, from some of their actions, especially corporate?
Well, let's start off with one thing that we learned, another thing that we learned with this COVID era. We are connected to one another. Many people have been saying this. A virus proved it without a doubt. Now, I'll try to be inclusive in my answer as well. So all startups, whether it defines itself as an impact or not, are here to solve a problem that the society, environment, people have. So the first question, the first slide of every startup pitch, we ask, whose problem are you solving? Because if you're not defining a problem and if you're not solving a problem, there's no value in that. But financial gains that we're focused on are just one of many of the outputs. So what is missing in this picture? Well, we need all startups to document their impact, show how much value they created for their society and everyone. Currently, we're looking at KPIs and terms for startups that are not smart enough. The KPIs are mostly financial and technical metrics, and I don't think that is a smart way to proceed with the new generations coming up. Financial gains are just one of many outcomes. So how can we focus on value and impact if the whole metrics that we established are just on financial terms? I think we need people like Ayşe, we need people like Başak, we need people like Erdem to come up with new terms, new KPIs, so we can track them and see the value, how much value we created. Mm-hmm. And once we shift the focus of the startups to value and impact, the profits will follow. I mean, I can't imagine a startup who's creating a lot of value and then for the society and not going bankrupt. It's not possible. But how do we do that? How do you make that change? Well, we discussed there will be a rise in the demand from the corporates for impact projects. There is no doubt on that. And then we have the impact measurement tools to complement the effort. The impact funds, it will incentivize the startups. Hopefully they'll be in majority. And what will be the impact of the change? Once we have the startups looking at documenting their impact, well, let's take the Turkish entrepreneurship ecosystem as an example. So many different ethnicities, religions, cultural backgrounds. We have a border with Syria, Georgia, Greece, and people coming from so many different regions, meaning there are so many problems that people are trying to solve that we're not even aware of. So what I need, from my experience with working that, is digital collaboration, tools, many tools, need to bring in these efforts, need to bring in the problems. We need to see them in order to solve them. We need to have Erdem, Başak, you and me working on same path and create solutions around these projects. I need to identify how I can contribute to Başak and how Erdem can contribute to me. That needs digital tools. So once it's there, I think most startups will be looking at impacts with all the incentivized efforts and that. It's going to make not an incremental change, but a very disruptive change.
Thank you very much, Attila. I think that brings a great closing point to our panel. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So thank you very much, Attila, Başak, and Erdem, for this great conversation. I hope to see you guys soon. And thank you for your contribution to the program too. Hope to see you guys next year. And I'll head the conversation off to Kaya.